I'm sorry. That popped into my head. Wasn't thinking about it, and now I'm fucking thinking about it.
What are you thinking about?
The fucking Rick and the Sans under boob.
What, Sans under boob?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I am confused and slightly intrigued.
As the only female here, I'm confused and slightly disturbed.
Hello everybody, welcome to Broken Caffeinated. I'm your host Dillustrator. Join me today as always, please welcome Fanboy Gif.
Hey everybody.
All the way from Fancom, please welcome RetroRic.
Hi there.
Alright, for the first time on the show also, please welcome Mandi Melodies.
Sup, Melanerds?
And last but absolutely not least, please welcome also first time on the show, Sammy Soundwave.
Yo.
Guys, thank you all for coming. This is something I've wanted to talk about for the longest time, and after recent events, I feel like it's now more appropriate to talk about it. Today's subject, are fandoms ruining franchises? Because I feel like nowadays you can't just be a fan of something, or you can, but it's almost like a no-win situation. If you like something, you're considered like a leftist SJW or whatever. Or if you hate something, you're a sexist bigot, something or whatever, or you're not a true fan. It's people will just attack you for even saying one tiny little minute thing about a show. What are your guys' thoughts about that subject?
I tend to agree with that. Just because it feels like, well, I mean, of course, it's with the internet, fandoms have grown so much larger than what they used to be. If I asked my parents about, how big was, just for a random topic, even though we said we were staying away from it, how big was the Star Trek following? They could tell me how huge the fandom was, but it was just that one thing. Now it's there's a fandom for, the Klingons, the Romulans, it's like a fandom for everything now. It's not just one fandom. It gets covered under an umbrella.
It's kind of sad almost in a way, because originally, when this whole, or at least the way I saw it as it was developing, was it seemed like there was one side that was trying to either ruin the fan base, whether it was on purpose or something, and then you had the other group who was trying to be the saviors or the protectors of the fandom, the anti-SJWs, I guess world-class bullshitters or whatever. But then it's if you really watch the videos, the stuff they complain about what the SJWs or whoever are doing, they're starting to do it themselves. So it's almost whatever, it doesn't matter what side you pick. It's almost like a no-win situation. It doesn't matter what side of fandoms you can be on. It's people just attack each other. It's they are literally, it's a civil war essentially in the fan base, with any fan base I've seen.
Coming this summer, fandom civil war.
I'd watch that. Okay, for me, because I hate saying this about myself, I am a millennial, so I've seen plenty of fandoms be ruined.
Fair enough.
Being a freaking millennial.
Because I know that they are older than me. Sorry, Deej, I don't know how old you are.
I'm 30.
Oh, okay then. So, because I was going to say, RetroRic and Fanboy, they would know.
Oh my god.
Interesting, but they would know.
Well, then.
Also know a lot about fandoms, coming and going. What do you guys think?
About
Just
fandoms coming and going?
Yeah, just how, their views on, what they've seen from fandoms as well first of all.
I guess from just from an older
generational,
fan,
yeah.
Or whatever we're called. I just think it's kind of funny that it seems like people, they either try to make they try to put certain shows on this high pedestal. It's a gift from God almost. The first thing I think of, a better example would be the Rick and Morty fan base. Okay. And how it seems there's a certain, I'm not saying about every single fan, by the way, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not saying if you like Rick and Morty, I'm not immediately calling you one of these crazy people, but unfortunately it seems like there's a certain huge group of people from that fan base that's kind of tainted the name Rick and Morty, to the point where if someone hears that you're a fan of Rick and Morty, they might associate with you with one of the people who was crazy over the Szechuan sauce incident.
Oh dear God.
Oh yeah.
Or what was another thing? Oh yeah, right. They kept apparently they kept I think it was they kept harassing the creator Dan Harmon and such, which then it made me think about a little bit about Star Wars with George Lucas, and it's like, why do people believe that by harassing the creators they're gonna want to create more of the stuff that they love?
Yeah.
Because fans think they're entitled.
Yeah, definitely.
Fan entitlement is an evil thing.
Oh,
Well,
God, yeah.
there's one show that like the first 2 seasons I kind of got into, but as the show kept going, the fandom was ruining it. Heck, the storyline was ruining it. And that show is Gotham.
Okay, I can see that.
It's the fan base that's ruining it, or it's just the story?
The fan base is ruining it because pretty much the whole thing, for any of you who haven't watched Gotham, I'm sorry, here's a spoiler. There is a character by the name of Jerome that everyone believes was going to become the Joker. But then people were like throwing out, like the fandom was throwing out random accusations like, oh, something's going to go up with Jerome. And like every time Jerome died in the season, they're like, no way, he can't die. He's going to be the Joker. But then the fandoms are all like, well, I mean, we can always just not have Jerome. And I'm like, well, you gotta have Jerome. Someone's gotta turn into the Joker.
But inherently, and as a fan of the Batman and as a fan, the Joker in my top 10 villains list, the Joker, what made him good in general is his anonymity. No one knows his past. We have vague inclinations of like, he was a failing comedian, or he, was doing a job because he owed money to like loan sharks, that sort of thing. So to a reasonable understanding, the Joker being anonymous makes more sense to me than having someone just be, oh, this is who the Joker's going to be.
Well, yes, what the fandom has like brought up is also their shipping of Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle.
Well, that's been going on for years.
Because when you see them on screen together, you immediately associate those two kids and their really quality chemistry with their older counterparts, and you just want to be like, yes, come on.
Yeah. So that's more of a you're so good together.
Spoiler alert! GIF season 4.
I'm well aware. I've seen up until the last season.
Oh, so you understand the whole plot twist they did with like who the heck turned into the Joker?
Yeah.
Honestly, the whole plot twist of Jerome has a twin brother, that was so stupid.
Well, to be fair, that show would suck if it were outbreak. Let's just put it that way.
The series started off strong from what I heard.
Yeah.
I want to pick a polarizing fandom.
Yes.
Which I think almost everybody who knows anybody will know. And I can't remember if we said we weren't allowed to talk about this one. But I'm going to throw Doctor Who into the mix.
That one was acceptable. I
called it. I knew one of them was going to bring up Doctor Who.
Because that is absolutely since the Matt Smith took over, that has been a very polarized fandom. To just, with accepting of new doctors, the Tennant fans versus the Matt Smith fans, the Russell T Davies fans versus the Moffat fans, the general hatred of Stephen Moffat by the end of the run, and now the season 13 or the 13th Doctor season 11 change that the show has gone through has led to there are whole YouTube channels now that have spent the past year dissecting everything about Doctor Who. And if you read the comments in that, there is a very divided fandom. And there has been, I think, in that show since Matt Smith took over. And it's just grown with each new incarnation of the Doctor.
Well, if there was a divide, at least with the Matt Smith era, like either I didn't notice it at all. It was always, at the end of the day, it was always like, oh, I prefer David Tennant or I prefer Matt Smith. Cool.
Right.
And that was it. But God forbid you say anything about Jodie, like even one little tiny negative thing, whether it's like, I I kind of find her like accent a little annoying, or I didn't like the doctor's plan. Even if it's not a criticize on Jodie herself, it's like my least favorite episode that at least I could watch of the last new season was Arachnids in the UK. And apparently, by saying I did not understand the doctor's plan, I think the writers are kind of stupid. They were attacking me saying, "How dare you say anything bad about Jodie?" Meanwhile, it's like if anything, I criticized the writers.
Yeah,
so unless Jodie was a writer on Arachnids from UK, and by the way, it's like I don't know. It's really hard to criticize almost any franchise nowadays, whether it's actual real constructive criticism. Like sometimes I think what people don't understand is like we will criticize a company sometimes because we want to see them get better and we want to see them grow.
Kineticon.
Yeah.
What is wrong with Kineticon?
Can we not get into
I have
that
a show
one?
for you to listen to, man. I have a show for you to listen to.
It's a shithole.
I can go into great detail later on.
It's
after
the only okay, but fair enough. It's the
It's
only
not.
convention I can
It's
pay to
not.
get into.
It's
I know, but
not.
it's the only one
There
I
are
can
two
afford to
more.
get into.
There are two more in Connecticut. There are 3 conventions in Connecticut because Connecticut wasn't good enough to sustain itself.
Connecticut's the only one I can afford to go to.
I'm sorry.
Hey, let's polarize some fans right now. Sorry, Connecticut fans.
Whoa.
I'm sure I'm already gonna attract haters about Jodie or even Rick and Morty fans, even though I'm not saying everyone in the fan base is as
well,
bad.
Hold on,
as
Deej.
people.
Well,
if Deej didn't have his if he didn't have his disapprovals of the new season, the day we met, he probably would have had nothing to say to me about the new season when I asked him.
No, I would have just lied to you and said it was okay.
You would have lied to me.
One good episode out of the bunch, Witchfinders.
Witchfinders was unintentionally the best episode, and only because it didn't do what Chibnall wanted it to do.
It had
just
Jim Cummings.
accidentally went the wrong direction. Yes, and they wanted to make the king seem like a flamboyant idiot to mock men and to mock the literal patriarchy. And all it ended up doing was giving the best character in that episode and make the episode feel somewhat like a previous era Doctor Who episode.
That's the only one that actually felt like an actual Doctor Who episode.
But it really didn't, because what it felt like was a historical reenactment mixed with a Monty Python skit.
Okay.
So it was all over the place. But he was definitely the best part of that episode.
Just to also throw this out there because it was mentioned that we're alienating people. All right, if you disagree, that's perfectly fine. That's not what
No, it's actually not. No one can have other opinions but us. If you disagree, you're wrong.
This is the internet. Everybody has an opinion. All of your opinions may be wrong, but you still get to have an opinion. It's fine. I'm kidding.
Oh my God, are you trying to get people?
Everyone gets.
No one can have a different opinion. Everyone must think the same. We are unison. We are unity.
To be fair, yes, Rick.
Right,
actually,
we now have targets on our back.
That is exactly the problem. Is
I
that
don't have social media.
You have to think like everyone
because
else.
we live in an era where everybody has an opinion and has the ability to spread their opinion so much easier. There've always been arguments way back when next gen. No, I know we're not going to go into Star Trek, but I'm just going to say smallest argument. When Next Gen came out, there was still Picard fans and Kirk fans. So there's always been divides, but unfortunately, I think that the world we live in now, where people can be as opinionated, especially with the anonymity of the internet, where you don't have to be at a convention with people that are like-minded and of differing opinion and argue it out face-to-face. You have the anonymity of the internet to basically just be as big a prick as you want, and it's socially acceptable, quote, socially acceptable.
Well, back to the fandoms ruining franchises, another one that I can think of that I have read way too many fan fictions that have permanently scarred me for life, The Walking Dead.
Oh boy, let's not. Okay, if we're going to go for that, I want to make one thing clear about
it.
it.
Fan fictions is technically a separate subject, because I've read certain fan fictions. I don't know, from my personal experiences, I've read certain fan fictions. Like, I read one, I won't even get into detail about it, but it was a Power Ranger fan fiction, and I'll still watch Power Rangers to this day. But my God, did that fan fiction kind of
it haunts your nightmares.
It was a thinker. Let's just say that
Dillustrator.
The guy was amazing.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. What about the Norman Reedus fans?
Ooh, Norman Reedus.
If that is not a diehard fandom that can sometimes go a bit too far, I don't think there is one in the.
I can't blame them, because hello, have you looked at Norman Reedus?
Hold on. Googling now.
Just Google Dead Stranding Norman Reedus.
Oh, okay. Sorry, the guy who plays Daryl. Fair enough.
Yes, Daryl Dixon is one reason why.
The whole if Daryl dies, we riot.
Oh,
yeah.
Thing came out when that show started. Tell me that's not exactly the epitome of fans going too far.
They did go too far.
A very good example.
I mean, there was slowly after if Daryl dies, we riot. The more the fans started to fall for other characters, they started adding like if Carl dies, we'll riot.
Isn't spoiler alert? Is he no longer
is dead?
Thank you.
Yes,
Nobody needed Carl. Carl needed to stay in the goddamn house, but he didn't, and now he's dead. And I'm glad he's dead. I like Chandler Riggs, but that version of Carl was not a very good Carl.
Wait, I have to bring this up because I can't remember where I read it, but someone did say that if Carl had just stayed in the house, everything would have been fine.
Yeah, pretty much. But there's also one other character that really made the fan go nuts.
What about Lori? What about the people shitting on Lori as like a horrible mother, a bitch?
Yeah, there was literally
a cheating bitch. Like, they hated her.
Yeah, that's why she left the show.
Yeah.
That's why they had her kill her off.
She was also kind of, for the most part, probably destined to die anyway, because they still stick somewhat true to the
she was
comics,
although she did not,
except for Carol, clearly.
Well, they didn't stick to the comics because Carl wasn't supposed to die. Then.
Neither was Rick, right?
No.
Yeah, but that's because Carol is the best part of the show.
No, Carl, not Carol.
No, but Carol was supposed to be dead a long time ago in that show. But because Carol is the most BA character in that show. Yeah, they need her in that show. If there's a strong female character represented in current television, it's Carol. Because, damn, she is scary, sociopathic, badass.
Yeah, but another character after they died that I really saw the fans kind of go overly nuts was Glenn.
Yeah.
Because after Glenn died, there became so many memes. Like, there was this one meme of it was a picture of like burger meat that hasn't been cooked yet, but over it, instead of like packaged meat, it said Glenn's action figure.
Oh. Actually,
after they killed Glenn is when all the jokes about Glenn's death coming in.
No, because
he was supposed to die. Well, that was one thing they couldn't change. That was from the start of that show, that was an inevitability.
Mm-hmm. There was actually another thing I wanted to point out in defense of the fandoms, actually, because I've actually started noticing this. I feel like the creators or like certain heads like Lucasfilm or whatever, they kind of should have some of the blame too, because certain people there are not exactly helping their cases.
Completely.
Like a good example to avoid from Star Wars. Currently what's going on, Zack Snyder, how he's going out about saying, hey, you should accept the fact that Batman and Superman kill people.
Oh yeah,
Zack Snyder.
That I have always told people, it's like Zack Snyder was not one of my favorite directors ever, but that was it. I never had anything against the guy. I cannot to this day finish Man of Steel. I fell asleep to Batman v Superman during the Batmobile chase because I just didn't care what was going on.
Me too.
But But after that, when he's like trying to come out saying you should accept the fact that Batman kills people and that real superhero, or if a superhero was in, real life, they would be killing people or whatever. They couldn't have this non-kill count. And it's like, Zach, you do realize Batman and Superman are fake, right?
See, this is what happens when you give the guy who did 300 way too much power and, fame, because he just goes completely off the rails.
So I don't know. It's like I'm glad when certain creators come out when it comes, for example, like with Steven Universe, after that whole thing where a bunch of fans from Steven Universe were attacking that little girl, basically trying to make her commit suicide over some stupid fan art.
Whoa. When did this happen? I never heard about this.
Okay. Deej, you mind if I explain this since I did a paper on this?
Oh, go right ahead.
Oh, this I gotta hear.
Go right ahead.
So, me not being a Steven Universe fan, this was like what made me not ever really want to be interested in the fandom at all. Apparently, this little girl drew, I forget who it was, and she changed like something about the character. As soon as she put that on her Tumblr, the fans attacked her saying, how dare you do this? She's supposed to look this way. And they attacked her so much, she ended up almost committing suicide and ended up in the hospital.
Damn.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
All that over some fan art?
I get the fans of Steven
are like really serious about their gems, but that's just ridiculous.
Rebecca Sugar had to actually at some point step into Twitter, basically telling people, that's not cool. Steven Universe is all about spreading love and all that, but
acceptance and all that. Yeah, no, that's. Yeah. But also in defense of good fans, what Rebecca Sugar did was what all good fans, try to strive for. It's like, look. That's not what this is about. It's about these things set up. So I give her credit for, going after not her fan base, but these group of fans that actually caused this problem.
Way to go, Rebecca Sugar.
Yeah.
And there's the whole, what was it? When George R.R. Martin had like his heart attack scare.
Mm-hmm.
What the fans told him. There was like a bunch of people who said, "Oh, don't die yet, not until you finish the book series."
Oh.
Yeah. Now, it's a dick move.
That is a dick move, and to a certain extent. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I know it's going to get me some hate. In a joking manner, I get that, but I would say that, like.
Okay, I actually found the article about the Steven Universe thing.
Okay. Now, I would say that just, like a group of friends, like mainly because, I don't wish death upon anyone. I wouldn't say that to George R.R. Martin. I would say to him, hey, I hope you get better soon. I'm looking forward to this, but I hope you, you recover and are able to continue. But to like someone like, Rick or Deej, I would say, oh, yeah, no, like he can't die yet. He has to finish the series first.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those internal thoughts that you don't say out loud.
Yeah, that's like if you say it on the inside, like, oh, don't die, we need to know what happens. That's fine. But if you actually say it out loud, that's just kind of a dick move.
Oh yeah, totally. Especially if you say it to him. Again, like out loud in joking manner amongst friends is one thing. Saying it to the actual person, that's screwed up.
Yeah.
Oh, why? That's the entire thing, Rick?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right, so I'll have to
look
at that.
As a fan of Steven Universe, I do have to say, like, I can agree that some of the fans go a little overboard. But there was this most of the fans now that I know are mostly of the LGBT community, because they had this whole thing where they had Estelle, who voiced Garnet, come to a Pride festival and sing whatever Garnet's song was.
Oh, Stronger Than You.
Yeah,
nice.
She actually went and sang it at a LGBT community fair, and it's just that has made like the whole fandom kind of grow, not to just kids who find the cartoon adorable, but to like actual LGBT community showing that the show is about loving everyone no matter what you are.
As someone who has dipped their foot into that fandom, what actually hooked me on was I randomly was on my phone looking at YouTube videos for it because a friend of mine had suggested it, and I was never a fan per se because it was during that time for Cartoon Network when they were shifting over to stuff like Teen Titans Go and everything. So the animation style never caught my interest. I've since moved past that. I like certain aspects of it, but like one of the darkest episodes I saw, or the darkest episodes I've seen, involved Lapis and Jasper, and I'm like, are they seriously covering this topic in a kids cartoon? This is amazing.
Yes.
So that's A, how Lapis became my favorite one, and B, how, it's just like, okay, I think I can dig the show because it gives more credit to its viewers than most shows these days do.
Yeah, I honestly, my favorite character for Steven Universe has to be Rose Quartz, or as she is now known as Pink Diamond.
Scandalous.
The scandal of knowing that Rose Quartz was actually Pink Diamond.
Yes. Sorry, dude.
No, all I was gonna ask was like, has there been like, is there like a fandom that you guys believe is like a good example of a good fan base? Because for me,
Harry Potter.
Oh, come on.
I was gonna say Supernatural for mine because I have I have started so many friendships because of my tattoo.
Fair enough. Even though, and sorry to say, it is ending this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna cry when that happens.
Which is weird because, I mean, as far as I knew, like, they were gonna keep it going for as long as possible, but they've already set every television record there is with this series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't know where else you could go.
But yeah, no, Sam, honestly, when it comes to the fandom for Supernatural, it's hilariously funny that I've seen from the fans how very into it they can get.
Yeah, I know someone and they were a huge fan of it, and they went to the cons and then explained to me like that the entire cast loved their fan base. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, I've just heard positive things.
You mean the actors for Sam and Dean? Oh God, yeah.
No, not just them, but
Jared
everybody.
For other certain fans, yeah, I've unfortunately attracted certain assholes. The worst one for me actually was with the Yu-Gi-Oh fan base.
Really?
Oh yeah,
I want to hear
that
this.
was
You talked about this last time. I'm curious.
Yeah, you have 3 players in this chat, so this is gonna be good.
I'm actually playing Duel Links as we speak, so
awesome.
So I should probably add that this is technically part 1.
Is Duel Links not actually very fun?
It's really
Side
not.
note.
It's really not.
I kind of like it because you can squeeze in this little 5-minute game.
Yeah.
There's still like hundreds of cards, so you have to actually play enough that you start unlocking decent cards.
Yeah, it's a grind.
But like I've made
a
pretty so unfortunately the first but once you start doing the actual once you skip and you can start doing tournament play against like random people on the internet, it actually becomes a lot of fun.
I'm a fake
the grind at the
player,
beginning
thank you.
is not great.
All right, Deej, go back.
The story, yeah. So this was my very first ever dedicated troll, and it was over the stupidest thing ever. This was about 2 years ago. I wrote a comment on the official Yu-Gi-Oh! Facebook page. They were doing a trailer for, I think it was called Dark Side of Dimensions.
Yep.
And all I said in the comment was how come in the Japanese version with the English subtitles you use the American names and not the Japanese names? That was all I said, because that annoyed me. That just annoyed me if I'm watching the show and I'm reading Dark Magician. He's going Black Magician. Stuff like that just kind of threw me off. But I'm also trying to learn how to speak Japanese. I didn't say the show sucked. I didn't say anything bad about it. And this attracted someone to the point where they were starting to stalk me. And they would send me, I swear to God, on my life, like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph on messages. All of it saying, I'm an asshole. I should die in a fire. How dare I say anything bad about Yu-Gi-Oh?
No.
It was like, you had to scroll. And this went on for like 2-3 months. And
how'd you get rid of this?
I blocked him 13 times.
Oh my God.
He would create accounts. And he was always using old lady pictures as his profile picture. Was creepy, and he would be like, "Hey, you asshole, why aren't you responding?" And at first I tried to be civil about it, I tried to be the good guy. He unfortunately won at that point. Now he's got me yelling back. And then finally, I learned to just stop talking to him in general. I tried blocking every single message to the point where then the asshole goes, you know what I'm going to do if you don't respond? I'm going to start taking your pictures off Facebook. I'm going to start making fake accounts and do God knows what. So that was when I had to quickly make my Facebook page private and everything. So now the only way you could see anything of mine is to be a friend, because I got nervous about what this asshole was going to possibly do. Like, he was relentless, and that it got to the point where it's like I almost didn't want to touch Yu-Gi-Oh anymore because of this one asshole. But
It's understandable. I've had one stalker due to Helsing fandom, and then with the whole Vic Mignogna thing, I still have people coming at me on Twitter.
Oof.
But the whole Helsing thing was years ago when Helsing was still big. Me and a bunch of friends did live action Helsing videos, Helsing HQ, back before cosplay fame became a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because I was friends with these guys, and I would cosplay as their Walter. So,
cool.
yeah. So then this one dude got a hold of me saying, hey, do you know these guys? Can you send them this? Can you send them this? Is this a good idea? Is this a good idea? And he would send like YouTube videos to us, like saying, can I be in the show? Can I be in the show? And we're like, Then he said, then also this was also back when DeviantArt was still a thing.
Mhm.
Hey kids, remember DeviantArt? That's how old I am.
Yeah.
And he would send me like his fanfics that he wrote, and it was just like the Helsing Organization meets Ash from the Evil Dead, and that was like his big go-to thing. I'm like, okay, go away. Then like I don't think about him for like 2 or 3 years. He comes back here. Hey, remember me? Hey, remember me? Do you still talk to Mars, Jen, Ginger, and Michaela? I'm like, kinda. Are they still doing Helsing? They're still doing Helsing? I'm like, we've moved past this, and so should you.
There was this one fandom that when I was in high school, I was not a big fan of, and I literally had someone leave a threatening note in my locker from the whole fandom that went to my high school that if I did not change my attitude about the show, that they would come after me.
You know what? That's
What
you
show?
don't see-
What show?
My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
Oh yeah, that was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
Isn't that the
my
most
school
ironic thing about
was
the fan
full
base?
of a lot of my classmates were bronies. The
Oh.
other half were furries.
Whoa.
Don't get me started. My high school was weird.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never really that's the thing. I'm not a social person. I'm amazed I'm doing this. But my knowledge of fandoms is mainly just what I've heard, what I've seen. Never really my interactions with them. So the fandom that I kind of want to highlight as at least what I believe a not safe but positive one is the Transformers fandom.
Ooh.
And I'm not talking about the Michael Bay Transformers. I'm talking about Generation 1, Beast Wars, and so on and so forth.
I never got into Beast Wars. I never understood why it's so popular.
The concept of it, I personally believe I got into it just because I watched it in the morning before I went to school. So it was
the
like
whole dinosaurs thing, maybe.
Yeah, it may have been the whole dinosaurs thing. It was also the fact that along with, if I'm going to be dating myself here, but for some of you, if you remember Reboot.
Mm-hmm. I remember Reboot very well.
Yeah, that and Beast Wars were two of the most iconic because they were the first series to actually use that kind of 3D modeling sort of. So them right on there, that's another reason why it's loved for that. But the characters and everything were so good. But then as I got older, one of my fondest memories is I went to New York with my parents to a convention called CyberCon, and it was in the basement of of a church, which I found hilarious, to be completely honest. But I actually got a comic book autographed by Peter Cullen, the voice of
Nice.
Optimus Prime. And, you know, if I had the knowledge that I have now as back then, I would have thanked him for being like, you know, this iconic voice of generations of people. Because, you know, just the voice of Optimus Prime is so iconic. And, you know, I don't want to get into the whole story. You can look up why the voice is the way it is anywhere on YouTube. But, you know, there's just something about, like, you know, how he portrayed that character, that any incarnation of that character cannot be, you know, like some battle-hardened warrior. He has to be, in his words, he has to be strong enough to be kind. And I feel like generations that grew up with all of that knowledge and like how Peter Cullen created this character, you know, kind of translated that into the fandom itself. Because you could, you know, I like Transformers to the point where if someone doesn't know about it, I could explain, you know, certain characters to them and they'll be like, oh, that sounds cool. And like, yeah, take a look. It's something to look at. You know, it's nice to look at. I haven't heard many negative things until it gets to the Michael Bay era. And that's mainly because people are like, this isn't Transformers, which to an extent it is and it isn't, like most, you know, adapted things over time. But it's, but then again, I just don't like Michael Bay's movies.
Not everyone
That's
does.
fair.
Yeah.
But let's remember though that Rodimus Prime sucks.
As a name, yes. As a concept,
Fuck you,
no.
Rodimus Prime. No, Rodimus Prime was the Prime by accident. Rodimus Prime sucks. There's no excuse for them killing off Optimus Prime and giving us Rodimus Prime.
Okay, so get
There,
this.
I
I
said
had the 25th anniversary of that movie, and I watched that whole
Same.
thing. And yeah, and so you probably see it too on the DVD bonus features. It's like they have the explanation, you know, from all of the like voice cast. They're like, we were stunned. Like, we're reading the script. It's like, you're doing what?
Yeah, because for them it was just a toy line.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
But
for the
you want to
people who-
see something that tears a fandom apart, it's killing off your main character.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the only time I think the entire fandom was like bad, but it was for a valid reason as well, that they
Yeah,
actually
because
brought
you had
Optimus back.
that like kids locking themselves in their rooms and all that.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
Okay,
and-
kids do that already. There's not really any reason. Like,
Yeah, but back
like,
then
fandom
it
is
was
the
actually
reason they
like
lock
something
themselves in their
strange. It was like something like, whoa, that's really weird. But now it's just like, I want attention.
yeah, no, it actually,
Yeah.
but I mean, and this isn't like, and here's another date that I can get a whole laugh from an audience. You remember when Steve from Blue's Clues left and like
Oh,
everyone
dear
thought he
God,
died?
Mhm.
So think about if that situation happened like now with how social media is. Peter Cullen could have gone on and said, no, that's not how this is, you know, they did this to try and move a new story. Like, you know, he alone could have quelled a whole lot, but because social media wasn't as it was, or I think barely even existence, you know, it was more like the fans' outrage and toxicity and, you know, like the fear for kids brought Optimus Prime back to life.
Yeah.
You know what's another example I'm thinking of? I remember when Brock from Pokemon was taken out because the creators, the writers were afraid of backlash because people were going to think, oh, he's a racist stereotype look of an Asian person. But then the opposite happened. People more gave them backlash because, like, fuck, Tracy, we want Brock back.
Oh, yeah. So all of
By the
that
way,
stuff.
Tracy was one of the creepiest people or like companions of Ash, in my opinion. It was just like,
Yes.
what do you want to be? I want to be a Pokemon watcher.
Oh, because Brock was so much better.
Okay,
He was horny on. He was
right.
the
Yes,
Brock is the
granted,
definition of
but-
horny on main.
But you know what? At least
Well,
when
that's true.
Brock
Brock's
kissed girls
eyes
who
went
got
out
smacked,
of his head at every girl
Tracy
he
was
looked
just
at.
unnerving.
Yeah.
Tracy was just like, I just want to watch you and draw.
Yeah, no, and his obsession with Professor Oak reached disturbing fandom levels. Do you think Professor Oak will like my art? I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
I think the inherent thing is that there are fans, and what fans tend to do is they tend to look at something constructively, and when there's an issue with it, they are vocal about it because they want it to be better. And when things are good, they want to share it and embrace it and enjoy it. And then there are assholes. And assholes are people who bash somebody on Twitter until they leave Twitter and want to kill themselves, like 2 Star Wars stars have, or attack workers at a fast food joint because of a 20-year-old fast food sauce, or I mean, you can go on with the Damn It Ross from Game Grumps.
Yes, that's
where they
right.
had to start
God
saying
damn it,
you can't say God damn it, Ross, because it was actually starting to become an issue when they were meeting people. So like
it actually affected
there's just
his
a point where it gets too far and people don't know where the line is between like loving a friend. There's like 3. Okay, so maybe there's not 2. There's 3. There's fans. There's obsessive fanatics, and they're assholes. And assholes just want to use a fandom to basically
push their own
destroy the parts of it they don't like, or the people in it they don't like, or just go way too far. Then there are the fanatics, like the people who just wanted Szechuan sauce because it was mentioned, and if you can't have it, then that's just a problem in their life. And then there are the regular fans who want to just enjoy something, or
just go along for
criticize it when it criticize it when it goes wrong because they feel passionate about it. But there's criticism, and then there's just being a dick. And the problem is that we live in a world where there's a very fine line in how people view fans, where they don't know where being a fan ends and being a dick starts. And I think the media and people that aren't fans that are looking at fandoms can't also really tell where that line is drawn, because it's kind of a gray area that shifts fandom to fandom, and it shifts situation to situation. It's very hard to gauge exactly who are the fans and who are just the troublemaking pieces of shit who are using this fandom to almost go too far.
I have a question. If
I
someone
love
could
the
explain
fact
to me
that.
the
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I love the fact that if you support a certain artist, or if you support, or at least just the work, you are automatically labeled as something. Like, people are quickly. It seems like we are living in a time now where people are really all about their labels. You have to be labeled something. That's the biggest trend. Like, people keep throwing out words that I don't understand anymore. It's like do you love Rick and Morty or do you hate Rick and Morty? I'm just fine with it.
Oh yeah, no. I will label myself like a fan of Transformers just because it's what I grew up with. Steven Universe, I'm just, I'm okay with Steven Universe. I've got some episodes I like. I'm not 100% a fan of it because I haven't watched the entire series to make my judgment call on that, but I like what I've seen and I can't argue with it.
Well, I also love the fact that there's people who, like, they are so protective of certain properties, like it's their own. That drives me, like
I can name off 3 right now: Smash Brothers, wrestling, and Doctor Who.
I'll give you an example. Like, I'm a giant fan of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. Love that show to death, mainly because of nostalgia. But I will happily agree with you if you came up to me and said the animation's garbage. It's like, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop watching it, though.
It looks like a lot of spaghetti.
Can I just say there's... Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
There's one fandom how I don't understand there is a fandom to this show, and that's Big Bang Theory.
All right, let me just say this: Big Bang Theory is blackface for nerds.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
That is exactly what it is.
It
is an offensive stereotype of what it means to be a fan of anything.
Yeah, and
it is towing the line between what a fan is and what an obsessed weirdo is. And they really want you to think that nerds are smart, nerds love everything about everything, and are super obsessed with all of it. And that's not there's a varying gauge of fandoms. I consider myself a fan of a great many things, and I have a great many toy and prop of many things.
Oh, yeah.
But I do not just collect everything and learn everything about everything, because that's the Big Bang Theory is such a joke on what it means to be a fan, because they know everything about everything and are fans of everything, and nobody is that person. So that's such a bad example of what it means to be a nerd in this day and age.
Yeah.
Especially since they're supposed to be around our age for the most part. A couple of you are a little younger, but they just, it's all wrong. Everything about that is wrong.
Then you kind of have the fans who take it way too seriously. Like, I'll never forget, Gif, you remember that Yu-Gi-Oh tournament we went to and you were doing lines from Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged and no one was having it?
Oh my god. Was this the one you guys left and went to a Dunkin' Donuts?
That was not,
oh my
that
god.
didn't go over well at all.
Yeah,
I'm glad I made you go, though.
Fucking
it was nice, but it was, oh my god, everyone was just straight, like, boring. Gif was doing lines from Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, and, like, no one was having it, and everyone was like, okay, I do this, I'm like, have some fun. You're at a children's card game tournament.
Yeah, seriously. See, I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Became 100 times better because of the Abridged series when you realize this is a children's card game.
Yeah.
So if you are serious when playing with that thought in mind, it becomes the most spectacular thing on the planet, because it's like, I am being serious with this children's card game. Clearly, I am a mature adult.
I think that's part of the problem is everyone takes everything so serious about, like, any show. It's like, have fun with it. Like, I can have a sense of humor about some of the stuff. I know people who have made fun of Supernatural to me.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stop watching it.
And little tip, if you don't like it and don't think it's for you, watch something else.
Yeah,
watch something that you enjoy.
How dare you?
I mean, like, here's the thing. That thing with Rodimus that Gif just went through, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'll try to defend it, but at the end of the day, I'm going to agree with him that it was kind of pointless. Oh, God.
I want to touch on one last fandom, and this is a doozy of a fandom.
I've got one
and
more.
I just want to
after you.
touch on it a little bit,
Mhm.
because I think it's a pretty decent example of everything that we're discussing,
Mhm.
and that's sports fans,
Oh, lordy.
like football fans, or that industry.
in general.
Those,
What's sports?
yeah, sports. I mean, that's a whole other, like, I feel like if you look at what our fandoms have been going through
Mm-hmm.
in the more recent years, it's actually very reminiscent of what sports fans have been doing,
For years.
like, their entire run. There's been a very aggressive tone to sports. I mean, to the point that it's made fun of in, like, many cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
That's the running joke that dads at football games or basketball games or baseball games are inevitably going to fight, that coaches are going to fight, that there's such a level of passion.
That
and I
moms
feel
are
like
overzealous about their kids'
And
very
I feel like that
mediocre
boils
skill.
but I feel like that boils now into all of our fandoms a lot more. So when you're looking at the people who put on the jerseys and just go and have fun, and, like, the people who go really way too far, and then the people who just start rioting when their team loses, that's the prime example of, like, not knowing where the line is.
Yeah.
That there's a
And
line in
wrestling
society.
fans are the worst. As a wrestling fan myself,
I don't know. Football and baseball fans, I mean, their towns have burned to the ground because teams have lost.
Or have won.
That's such a weird cultural, and we accept it as the thing.
We do.
Like towns grease their like light poles and stuff to try to prevent rioters from climbing up light poles. That, like, they put Crisco on them. We've reached that point that, like, but now it's not even just them. It's like you can cause a convention full of people to freak out if one thing changes in a fandom.
Oh, yeah.
There's just pandemonium in the streets. And I have not figured out how reached the point where that's spread so far into our culture.
Social
We just
media.
accept it as a thing. We've reached the point where that's just the norm, and I can't figure that out.
Sidebar. Oh god, like even fandoms for like older things, and just I thought of this like from you saying norm, like old stuff from like Cheers and everything. Those things can get out of hand, man. I don't know why I brought that
I'm
up.
someone who thinks jocks are basically just sports nerds.
Oh, they are.
Hi, thank you.
Of course they
I
are.
thought you were the biggest hypocrite back when I was
A
growing up.
nerd is just somebody who really is passionate about something.
But
Exactly.
now,
my
and,
high
and,
school
and now
nerd.
being a nerd is the
Just
in thing, and
fanatics.
so like you
Yeah.
have like some guy wearing a Deadpool T-shirt, but if you ask them their other favorite characters,
What are you talking
I don't
about?
know, I just like Deadpool. He kill people. He's awesome. He swings.
Yeah.
Like, then you're not a nerd. Take the shirt off and go fuck yourself.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's that is the kind of culture that Big Bang Theory spawned. Was that okay, you're not really a fan, you just like it for the laugh factor of, oh hey, check this out, it's nerdy, it's cool or whatever.
Yeah.
And that alone is why I
It's the
hate
in thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that alone is why I hate it, because it's like, okay, so I genuinely like this. I've liked it for a long time, and I got made fun of it. Why is it now that you are allowed to like it when I wasn't?
You know how much my mind exploded when Pokemon Go came out?
Yes, seriously.
I was bullied repeatedly for playing Pokemon Red and Blue on my school bus. I was outcasted as the fat typical nerd. I was ridiculed by everyone. They picked on me for liking Pokemon. Now, fast forward years later, everyone's out on their phones playing Pokemon Go. Like, it's like, oh, this is the hip thing. Oh, Pikachu's the best. And it's just like, you fucking hypocrites.
Where were you 10 years ago? Oh, but it wasn't the in thing. Now it's cool, so I like it now too.
Oh, okay. Best example I have for this, because I used to work at a GameStop. This whole thing was going on when Pokemon Go, and so like this girl who I know wasn't into it, and I know her mother, like just because of the age differences, you could tell that the mom knew about Pokemon when it was big and everything, and so she's like, well, Arceus Arceus is the best character because of how he's technically Pokemon God. I'm not getting into that discussion. I'm like, I remember when Arceus never existed. And she's like, wait, that was a thing? I'm like, I'm part of the generation that helped keep Pokemon in the United States. I know a thing or two about Pokemon. And like her mom starts laughing because she actually understood what I was saying. And the girl's like, wait a minute, what? It was hilarious. But there is a fandom I wanted to touch on.
Yes.
And I've been noticing it more and more just because of how the world turns. I can honestly say that I am a fan of Bethesda games. I'm sure we've all, like, some of us in this group has played one or another at that point.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing I like about their games, and this is just a brief overview, is they're good storytelling, some of the goofy bugs that they have, and just the general adventure. I'm a big fantasy nerd as well, so to get this out of the way, standard fantasy nerd talk: elves, dark elves, orcs, dwarves. There we go. But that said, the fandom itself ruins it because, and I'm going to use Fallout 76 as the prime example. As we all know, that big debacle. So to throw this into perspective, fans, we waited years to get Fallout 4. We waited years to even hear about Skyrim. Not years. Elder Scrolls 6. And still, no one is completely satisfied. I get that, the need for the next best thing, because, okay, we played this, now we want to continue. But if you think about it, the fans are slightly to blame for the failure that is Fallout 76. They kept demanding more and more and more. And while I wasn't a fan of the concept of an MMO Fallout game, the idea had some merit. They did well with Elder Scrolls Online, which Gif and I can both attest is a pretty okay game, right?
Yeah, it has its fun elements.
Yeah, and so I wouldn't mind, a Fallout version of that. I really wouldn't. But it's because the fans saying, "Oh no, we deserve this. We want this. We keep asking, so why aren't you giving it to us?" I feel like that is the reason why it was so bad. Granted, it could be also on development part. I'm not going to say that Bethesda is completely not at fault here, but I have to admit that the fans alone, or at least for the most part, actually are kind of the reason why things like this happen. Yes, supply and demand, and we always want the next best thing, but no one is patient enough to wait. And so you get this, and when the fans are disappointed, someone like me who is a good casual fan will look at it and be like, well, what were you expecting? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so just to wrap it all up, and I do want to get your takes on what you think about this. I think a good fan is one who is patient enough to wait, but still have that hype to it. Like, personally for me, Kingdom Hearts 3, throwing that dart at the board, I waited about 14 years for that game.
I so wish it never came out just because my joke is now ruined. My old joke of Kingdom Hearts is that one fan fiction that hasn't been updated since 2008 with the author's note, "Sorry, I've been busy with school."
Fair enough. I love
Oh
it.
God.
I love it. That's perfect. That's actually a great description because of how Tetsu Nomura is a crazy person.
Well, you can update the joke because as I've played almost every single Kingdom Hearts game, I've been like a fan of it since, like, you could say since the beginning. Not a hardcore fanboy, mind you, just like, like a regular casual fan. Which I guess that doesn't seem to exist anymore. You can't just be a casual fan.
No. Here we establish the casual fan.
Like,
You can't be a casual fan
is
casual.
Like,
You have to be
play the game.
hardcore.
I have fun. I vaguely know the story, but you're not going to see me suddenly jump into strong debates of why I think Sora and Riku should get together, or some stupid crap like that, or why I think it's the worst thing ever. But even when I played Kingdom Hearts 3, the story was okay. Someone was pissing off the director saying, "When is it coming out? When's it coming out?" Oh, okay, fine. He quickly wrote it. Here's your damn story. That's how I felt the story was, kind of.
Here's your damn story. Oh no, this is Kingdom Hearts HD. This is Kingdom Hearts 222 days and a half.
Now, my only argument, I don't disagree with you on that one, Deej. I do agree with you to certain extents.
Yes.
From what I've honestly looked this stuff up because I am a big nerd for Kingdom Hearts. I've liked the series. I've had conversations and everything with friends. Tetsu Nomura has openly stated that he loves leaving gaps for people to fill in. So to a certain degree, he brought that upon himself. I'm not saying you're wrong, but he did do it to himself as well.
There's leaving stuff up to interpretation, and then there's gaps to the point of that makes no goddamn sense, and then it just kind of ruins your story. At least that's my opinion.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I'm just saying, like, Tetsu Nomura is a crazy person with how he decides to set things up, and he kind of did that to himself. So, for better or for worse, it was kind of a double-edged sword. But I was happy with it for the most part because it was at least a decent game. The gameplay mechanics were good. There were a few parts I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then you had to go to the whole mobile game, which I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole at the moment. But in general, it's that came out and there's 3. The problem also is that there, we know that there's DLC, we know that there's more story coming out, but he's also stated that Kingdom Hearts 3 ends one portion of a bigger story, and that drives me crazy. Because you do this because it's somewhat like, the creators will do this to themselves, and then when they get mad and rush things and people are mad, they're like, why? We gave you what you wanted. Why did you do this from the beginning if you didn't want us to rush you?
Sounds like Entity Creates in Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, though I've heard even more stuff about that game. Let's not get
yes, Giga Boys.
But I wanted to touch on one last thing that I think we have not touched on, which I think is the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Yep.
And I want to touch on it in a classy way. So let's try to keep this.
Should we get our British accents then?
Let's try to keep this highbrow.
Okay.
But and I'm gonna say let's keep this highbrow, and then I'm gonna say, why the fuck are we making everything fuckable?
Excuse?
Everything has been the one fandom, the one part of fandoms we haven't touched yet is the whether it's person, creature, just the general sexualization / over-sexualization of a lot of things, whether it's a person or a character or an entire genre. It's that additional last part of fandom, and I don't just mean the fandoms that are like that, but like there are actors and actresses, there are Instagram models, there are all types of people who have fans that a lot of them leave. They're YouTubers who stop being YouTubers because they're deemed just attractive to look at and they get the smuttiest comments and they leave the platform. So there's a whole additional side to fandoms. I'm not gonna throw anybody and any channels or anything out it, but I follow a couple of them on Instagram, and one of them is an ASMR artist, and she pulled down all of her videos because she's been getting nothing but smutty comments. And for a while she laughed it off, and then she did a I read your comments video where she deliberately did it to kind of subvert the fact that she knew she was getting them. So she was like, let me depower them by laughing at them and reading them and giving funny responses back. But eventually it becomes too much, and the fandom wins, and the fandom destroys some girl, some guy, it doesn't matters. First, they're the way they want to be seen by just turning them into essentially an object. And I think that's a whole other issue with fandoms, but that's a whole thing in fandoms that is another just problem with some fandoms.
See, I'm just imagining people pitching their shows, and then someone on the board of reviews just goes, all right, that's good and all, but can you fuck it?
Yes. Yeah, oh my god.
I mean, that's exactly, but I mean, like, we've reached the point where there is so much issue with fandoms because of that very thing.
Oh yeah.
That like there's just you can't put up a brand new Pokemon without immediately getting furry art 10 minutes into it.
Oh dear
and
God.
The problem with that is that stuff creeps up on YouTube search histories like page 1 because there's so much of it. We've reached that point that like just everything, whether it's a person, whether it's an idea, whether it's a show, there's a sense of how quickly can it be sexualized, and is that good for a fandom? Is it bad for a fandom? Well, like I get that it's going to happen, but to a certain extent, it discredits a lot of what it's trying to be when you sit there and say, like when Pokemon said we need to change the Ash's traveling companion to a different girl every season so the young boys have eye candy to look at. You're like, do you really?
Yeah.
Or the power crown that gave us Bowsette.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That was
Let's discuss that idea. I mean, it gave us like Buet or whatever, and that was actually the more tamer of the two, oddly enough.
Yeah, but it's just that
it's only tame.
I think that there's live people who it destroys them in their own fandom, and then there's fandoms that I think get maybe not destroyed, but of this one thing, whether it's, furry, whether it's fan art, whether it's, I mean, to the point where it becomes memes, it becomes jokes, but it's and I get that it's going to happen, do you? But I think that there is a level where, like other things, it can inevitably damage a franchise.
No, I agree with that.
Negative.
I
think it's the one part of a franchise we had not yet. The one part of being a fan that we had not touched. We touched a lot of the hate and we've touched a lot of the other things, but we haven't touched the lusting that some fandoms or some actors or some actresses or some characters just end up acquiring that inevitably damage.
Could be a part,
for instance,
be a part 3 on Superfancom.
Oh god, but you know what? You know how much Pokemon fan art you'd have to put up for that to make it make sense?
If I may?
Don't ever look up Pokemon fan art.
Just look up Gardevoir. Just type
no, leave my Pokemon alone.
Look up Lucario.
Nah!
I want to look up Lucario.
No,
Gentlemen,
look up
gentlemen,
Mario
if
and
I may.
Zoroark.
Don't ever look up Lopunny.
Oh.
Ever. Because that is a prime example of exactly my point, is that Pokemon actually, in the design process, said we're doing an American region. So let's create a bunch of new Pokemon that are all kind of stereotypically American. But in a previous generation, also wanted to create a Pokemon themed off of a beautiful woman, Playboy Bunny style 1950s caricature of the
Yeah,
Playboy Bunny
they did
outfit
that to
and the
themselves.
ears. And they created Lopunny, and you took what already was a franchise that
Was weird.
dirtied up so much of your characters, and you created a fan service character. And then there's fan service, which
Oh, yeah.
is a thing that is another prime example, because how many anime have been destroyed by having a good plot get completely undercut by just gratuitous levels of fan service.
Hold on. I'm crunching the numbers. A lot.
90%. 90%.
Yeah, no, I got a
90%
lot.
of good anime has a good plot that uses fan service as an element, would be good without the fan service. Then
Oh, yeah.
there's like the 10% that is just written to be fan service.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
Gentlemen,
just,
if I may.
Yeah. Oh, I would like to hear a
So-
woman's perspective.
So, from the woman's perspective here, the one fandom that I've known that I've really seen, like, that have really made, like, the girls, like, lust over actors or stuff would be with Harry Potter, because you've seen so much fan art of, like, say, Hermione and Draco, or Draco and Harry. Oh, God, don't get me started on those two.
Please don't.
I've actually, the last time I was at a convention where Tom Felton was there, he says if he sees another picture of Draco and Harry together, he's gonna lose it. Now,
Yeah, but
this
see,
was
he's
Tom
hilarious.
Felton who played Draco Malfoy. He was literally to the point where he's like, I want this fan art to stop.
For the most part, I think it has.
Yeah, since the franchise kind of died a few years ago. Ended.
Jacob.
Wait, what?
I've seen, being a huge fan of Fantastic Beasts and where to find them, I've seen very, very questionable fan art.
I would not like to know about that one.
I don't want to know about that either. If it's
It's exactly what you think. We've all seen the very questionable, and let me just say, I'm not kink shaming you. You do you, but
don't do that.
But I have so many questions.
that reminds me, I still need to put up that picture of the
Chris Hemsworth?
sausage Chris Hemsworth. I forgot about that thing. That is a nightmare fuel. No, I was gonna say I still have that picture. I still have the picture of no, it's Black Witch eating out Mystic Elf.
Yes.
Wait,
I still have
I
that.
remember that.
I still have that picture. I think it's on my phone, actually. I think I took a picture of the picture a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure I could dig that bad boy up.
Oh, God.
I'm gonna throw that on Instagram for anybody
Witch
who
of
really
the
wants
Black
to see
Rose,
it.
by the way.
Well, here's the thing.
It's Witch of the Black Rose. Thank you.
There's a fandom for this small little theater group out of Michigan that wrote like all these parody musicals. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of them. They're called Team Star Kid.
Oh yes, I love the Harry Potter musical.
Thank you. Yes, so I have seen some of those musicals are just like what shows what the fandom does, because they're literally just the fandoms writing musicals based off of their favorite things. Like there was the Harry Potter
Mandi,
musicals.
Can I ask you a question though?
Of course.
What exactly is a Hufflepuff?
It's a potato.
What exactly is a Hufflepuff? No, I believe the line is, what the hell is a Hufflepuff?
And the answer is?
A badger.
Well, no, it's literally the line. The line for the musical was Cedric Dumbledore is saying all the great stuff about the other houses, and then like he has nothing to say about Hufflepuff. Cedric Diggory stands up. Hufflepuffs are notoriously good finders. What the hell is a Hufflepuff?
But there is no better character in that series than Draco.
Oh my God, Lauren.
Drake.
Okay, so what they did with Draco for these musicals was Draco was played by a woman.
Awesome. He complains a lot in general, so.
She complains a lot. She rolls around on the floor constantly, and then there's like literally a whole song between Ron and Draco about how they're both falling for Hermione.
Oh,
Yeah, I could see that.
Mandy. Andy.
Yeah.
Bitch, I ain't Cho Chang.
Bitch, I ain't Cho Chang. That's
Oh,
Lavender
God.
Brown. Racist sister.
Oh my god.
All right. DJ, do you wanna bring us into a closing?
Yes. I was just about to say. Final thoughts, guys. What do you think? Are fandoms ruining franchises? Are they not really?
It depends on the franchise.
I was going to say the exact same thing. It depends on the franchise, but it also depends not just on the franchise, because any franchise can be fine. It depends on the people within the franchise as well, because as we've discussed, we've had some people, we've had great interactions about fan stuff, like with people noticing your tattoo for Supernatural. Me just, not really finding anyone who, even if they weren't a fan, people who didn't like Transformers weren't, jerks about it. They completely understood one person's like, and so on and so forth. I guess the ultimate thing is, if you're going to be a fan, keep it on an open-minded basis. At least in my opinion.
No, I agree. At the end of the day, I hate to say this, and this is coming from like a diehard nerd, someone who even dared say he was still a nerd in high school, at least back in the day for me, where being called a nerd was like basically saying, oh, I have the plague. And
oh, yeah.
I was a target. Was at the end of the day, they're just cartoons. They're comic book characters.
I'm going to say that the world has changed, and the world has changed in favor of people being more open about the things that they like.
Mm-hmm.
It's such as not the abundance of conventions, the fact that you can bump into cosplayers almost everywhere now, the fact that you can talk about what you like, what TV show or comic book so openly,
without
shows
fear.
That is there a damage to franchises and fandoms because of the negativity? Possibly a little. And I think that there isn't a set of fandoms that is more prone to that than others. I think the factor of what causes the negativity is more based on what the franchise is about, and I think the abundance of negativity is based on the size of the franchise.
Yeah.
But inherently, I don't necessarily think that any one franchise is being ruined by it exactly. It's just more that you have to know where that line is. And I think the term fan is almost a bad term now, because fan is representative of fanatic. And fanatic is unfortunately where a lot of people think fandom is supposed to go to. And that they don't realize that you're just supposed to like something. You're not supposed to live or die by it. And I think that's where we're at now, is that there are people who are it's so much of who they are is to be a fan of that it's almost a personal attack when you have a problem with it.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's going to ruin it for everybody else. I think that's ruining it. Actually, most likely that's just going to ruin it for that person. And we as the fans need to accept the fact that people are going to like it, people are going to hate it, people are going to be way too far about it, and you just have to enjoy it how you enjoy it. And when you're interacting with other people, take it at that value. And if they like it or don't like it, then that's exactly how their value of that franchise or that character or that story, whatever the fandom is about, that's how they value it, and we just need to learn to accept it.
That said, Deej, if I may try a little experiment here.
Yes, go ahead.
So if anyone's still listening and you agree or disagree with us, just throwing that question out there, since fan and fandom is somewhat becoming synonymous with a bit more negativity, what would you call people, what would you call people who are enthusiastic about something? I'm just, like, leave that out. I would like to know what other people think would be a better term to go for that would make being a fan not sound toxic or associate with, the negative things that happens.
Mandi, Rick, any final thoughts?
Basically, we're all trying to do the same thing, just enjoy something, and it kind of gets like confused after a while about you can only like this thing about this thing, but only if I like it. I mean, everyone has to like it. Just enjoy what you enjoy. Like I said,
Yeah.
the last time we did a show, I said like what you like, and just if you go to that level of basically geek entitlement, then you're an asshole.
Yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah, I completely agree with Rick.
You're allowed to like something, you're allowed to dislike something, but what you're not allowed to do is
It's
like
be mean
attack
to someone
someone,
because they like it.
Yeah.
or especially the actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everyone's just doing a job, and they're trying to live. Let's at least give them credit for that. They're doing the best they can with what they've got.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to say is you can like something, but just don't be shitty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Pretty much. I think that sums it up.
Can we put it like the more you know at the end of this?
Why don't we use a very important, why don't we use a fandom to describe how fans should be? Which is just simply put, was it rock on and be excellent to each other?
Oh.
Yes.
Be excellent to each other.
Yes, Bill and Ted.
You know how hard it was to say I'm a guy and I'm disturbed and slightly turned on, but I didn't want to say that because I thought that would come off creepy.
All right. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you all for listening. Fanboy Gif, where can we find you?
You find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and Discord at Fanboy Gif.
RetroRic, where can we all find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DefaultRick. Follow my channel SuperfancomShow on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and a whole bunch of other social medias at SuperfancomShow. Email us at superfancomshow@gmail.com. Next.
Mandi, I know we're still working on your social media, but I think you have at least an Instagram, right?
You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Mandi Melodies. It's Mandi_Melodies.
And,
Mandy with an I, and a heart over the I.
Mandi with an I.
Yeah. And Sam?
You can find me where
Century. You can't find him.
You can find him in a van down by the river.
You can find me in the 22nd century. I just popped back in time for these recordings.
Beautiful. And with that, thank you all for listening. Please write your comments below. What are your thoughts? And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, be excellent to each other, guys.
Be excellent.
Be excellent.